Thanks, Susan. Good afternoon, everyone. So it is my pleasure to provide the Sea Lamprey Control Report to Lake Michigan, which will cover some of our highlights from 2025 and some of our plans for 2026. So due to the devastating impacts of sea lamprey on many of the fish species in the basin, and understanding that sea lamprey predation is a limiting factor in restoration of native species, which we've just heard about, the Lake Michigan Committee adopted a fish community objective for sea lamprey control to suppress sea lamprey to allow the achievement of other fish community objectives. So there are two metrics of success to determine if the sea lamprey control program is achieving our goals, our fish community objectives in Lake Michigan. And the first is the target index of adult sea lampreys, which is 20,500 adult sea lampreys. And the second metric of success is the target of 5 fresh A1 to A3 marks per 100 lake trout greater than 532 millimeters. So the first metric of success is generated from adult assessment traps, which are located around the basin, as you can see here. So these traps are deployed in a subset of streams to generate the estimate of the adult index in the basin. So of the 9 trap locations here, those shown in blue are the 6 index sites. So in 2025, the trap catch in all of these trap locations total 10,795 adult lampreys, which is just a couple hundred more than we had in 2024. Mark recapture estimates were generated for all 6 index streams, and we will put that into a graph here in my next slide. And the largest contribution were the Manistee and Manistee rivers at 37 and 22% respectively. No surprise there. So this figure shows the adult index estimates of adult sea lampreys over time, with the black horizontal line representing the target of 20,500, which comes from an estimate as the mean of indices during a period when the estimate was acceptable, when the marking was acceptable. So that was from 2016 to 2020, which you can see here, just under that target line. So the point estimate for the 2025 adult index was 21,273. The 3-year average, which is a solid blue line, average of 23,451. So while both of those remain greater than target, we're breathing on it. We're making great success here. And I think this is a significant decrease to what we had kind of post-COVID, when you see this outlier here, which was an adult index of 49,000. So this graph here pulls in a couple different things. So you're looking at the 6 index sites, which are the colored blocks, and then the black line is our 3-year average of the adult index, and the dotted line there, just above 20,000, is that target. So this illustration pulls all these variables together and looks at the lake-wide estimate over the last 30 years. So the black boxes around the colored blocks indicate that the stream was treated in that year, although it could have been treated before, during, or after the lamprey run, which may have affected the returns in some cases. But by exploring this data, we hope to gather new insights into what affects mark recapture estimates in these streams. So showing an updated figure here to what Laura showed earlier. This figure shows sea lamprey marking over time, and we have the single point estimate for the marking for 2025 was 1.7 marks per 100 lake trout, with a 3-year average marking rate of 2.4. So both of these meet our target of 5 marks per 100 large lake trout. Yeah, hold your applause. Cool, thanks. Okay, so how do we work toward achieving our metrics of success and supporting the fish community objective? So our primary method is lampricide control. So here you see in 2025, all of the treatments that we had scheduled around the basin, which consisted of 26 lampricide stream treatments and 3 lentic areas that were treated. So all streams were treated, no deferrals. So some special points to note in our treatments from 2025 was Parent Creek lentic area was treated for the first time ever. High densities of large larvae and transforming phase sea lampreys were observed during several treatments, and those were on the Cedar and Manistee and Furlong and Bills Creeks. And then lastly, we had a large coordinated treatment effort on both of the Manistee and Muskegon rivers. So, in addition to lampricides, currently barriers are the only control method that we use in a management context, and that is to limit migration of spawning adult sea lampreys and subsequently the extent of streams treated. It's important to remember that not all barriers block sea lamprey, that the barrier side of the house, in addition to monitoring existing barriers, also evaluates and builds new barriers that are cost effective and compatible with the system's watershed plan. To limit upstream migration and again reduce the number of stream miles requiring treatment, the Commission has invested in 15 barriers around Lake Michigan. Of these 15, 6 barriers are purpose-built, shown there in blue, and 9 barriers were modified to block sea lamprey migrations and are shown here in yellow. So several barrier projects to highlight. All of these were in progress in 2025 and continue into this year. So on the Baldwin River, which is a tributary to the Pure Marquette, the program has tentatively selected an arc labyrinth style seasonal barrier to be constructed near the location of the current dam, and construction is expected to begin next year. On the Fish Pass on the Boardman-Ottaway River, construction is complete on the arc labyrinth weir, and construction on the 400-foot fish sorting channel has begun. And everyone's favorite barrier update, the Manistee River. The design phase will occur during 2026. Construction bids have been received to relocate the city's municipal water line, which has been a big project as the water line runs along the current barrier, the current dam. So construction bids have been reviewed to directionally bore under the river to relocate that water line, and that is tentatively planned for this summer. Swan Creek, a tributary to the Kalamazoo River, has partners reviewing design plans to rebuild the High Banks Dam. So in Swan Creek, there is a pending removal of the Swan Creek Dam, which is currently the lowermost sea lamprey blocking barrier. So redesigning the High Banks Dam would block an additional 4 miles of Swan Creek from sea lamprey infestation. And lastly, on the Little Manistee River, construction to improve the spillway and install a permanent lamprey trap is almost complete. That work has been done throughout the winter as weather allowed, and this will divert some of the flow over a new spillway during higher spring flows while maintaining an 18-inch drop at the weir. So this would be a significant improvement in reducing the amount of stream miles that is treated on the Little Manistee River. So consultations to ensure blockage at barriers were conducted at 50 sites in 18 streams in 2025 on barriers in Lake Michigan. And in 2025, initial efforts began to rank U.S. barriers on importance to the program based on a set of sea lamprey specific criteria. So the lowermost barrier prioritization continues with 102 barriers identified in the Lake Michigan Basin. So guiding and directing our ship, the Lampricide Control Program has a larval assessment team, which primarily conducts surveys using backpack electrofishing units, which are seen here. And this team goes out in all of the tributaries around Lake Michigan and the Great Lakes and determines presence, extent of infestation, and relative abundance. So in 2025, they conducted larval assessment surveys in 78 tributaries and 11 lentic areas. No new infestations were detected in 7 detection surveys. No newly infested Grand River tributaries upstream from the 6th Street Dam were identified, and no sea lampreys were collected upstream from the Fish Pass project on the Boardman-Ottaway River. So in streams where traditional controls are less effective, experimental streams have been selected for the application of supplemental controls in our Supplemental Sea Lamprey Control Initiative, also known as SubCon. So the experimental streams you see shown here in this map, with 2 of them specific to Lake Michigan. So in 2025, deployments were made, which included tools to divert, remove, and disrupt adult sea lampreys. And these deployments are scheduled to continue through 2029. So again, we utilized electric barriers, innovative traps, sterile male release, and we certainly appreciate everyone's patience and support as we enter this deployment phase of the project and learn what the benefits of supplemental controls are to the program. So some of the highlights from the 2 tributaries specific to Lake Michigan, the first being Furlong Creek. The deployment tactic here was to divert and disrupt using 100 sterile males released at a ratio of 40:1 and installed a portable electric barrier just downstream of Doe Creek. So some of the highlights included electrical field adjustments. So the barrier operated fairly well for its first season. And in the larval assessment surveys, no 2025 year class has been collected. So in Bills Creek, the deployment tactics here were to remove and disrupt. So this was done in releasing 300 sterile males at a ratio of 40:1. And there was a trap that was fished here at the Rapid River Truck Trail. The trap was easy to check and maintain. Some modifications are needed because of that unique bevel edge of the culvert, but there were high recapture rates of sterile males. And again, in the larval assessment surveys, no 2025 year class has been collected. So in order to continue to try to achieve our metrics of success with minimizing marking and wounding to our lake trout and trying to achieve our target goal of 20,500 adult sea lampreys in the basin, we have another full schedule for 2026. We have 20 lampricide stream treatments planned and 2 lentic treatments. We also have another large coordinated treatment effort in both the Manistee and Pere Marquette rivers. So what you're looking at here are our plans for the upcoming field season. So last but not least, our risk management team with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service addresses environmental and non-target issues related to the implementation of the program in the United States and Canada. This involves the coordination with many partners and working with others to minimize risk to the non-targets. So in 2025, they participated in a bioassay during an early spring treatment of the Cedar River to evaluate the effects of seasonality on larval sea lamprey sensitivity. They also participated in the partner-led Save Our Sturgeon, or SOS, collections during the 2025 Muskegon River treatment, and are also planning to participate in another Save Our Sturgeon effort during the Manistee River, which is currently scheduled for mid-August. So this concludes the Sea Lamprey Control Report for Lake Michigan, but it certainly would go, I can't go without acknowledging our dedicated and passionate staff from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Fisheries and Oceans Canada who effectively deliver the Sea Lamprey Control Program in Lake Michigan and the entire Great Lakes Basin. I might be a little biased, but I think this is a really great looking group of people that work extremely hard to protect our Great Lakes. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.